Mina is an actor. Mina has been at the forefront of expanding how Arab narratives are seen and celebrated worldwide. Welcome to Abu Dhabi.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
How has it been? How long have you been here now?
I've been here a couple of days, but I've been here before.
Yeah.
I've been here a few times, so it's good to be back.
Yeah. Have you ever worked here or have any interest in working in the region?
Yeah, I would love to work here. I came for the GQ Awards a couple of years ago, and I've been here for a few things. So it's good to be back, and working in the Middle East, I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if it's your culture and something you want to represent. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. I mean, first we have to discuss your biggest project, Aladdin. That's how we all were introduced to you. Can you tell us about how you ended up landing the role? Because if I recall, there was a call to action for everyone to come and audition.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, honestly. It was a long casting process. I had sent in a self-tape for the role, and I didn't hear anything back for about 6 months. So I thought that, like any audition you have or anything, I thought, okay, it's gone for now. And I was very surprised that they called me back and had me send in another tape and eventually fly out to London to meet Guy Ritchie and the producers. And I flew back to Toronto, flew back to London. So it was quite a long process, but that's the gist of it.
Did you have to take singing lessons before that, or?
I did. I took singing lessons all throughout. I went to theater school. I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so we did a little bit of singing, but it wasn't a ton. So for the role, I definitely had to up my game, and I took singing lessons all throughout the process.
Now, I have to ask this because you weren't originally in theater school. You were studying medicine.
Neuroscience.
Yeah, so I want to ask, coming from an Arab background, dropping out of medicine school and I'm going into the arts, how was that received?
Yeah, it's, I think when you're an immigrant and your parents are immigrants, they don't want you to take a ton of risks. And they really want you to find something secure to do with your life. And my parents were no different. That's what they wanted. So, that's kind of the path that I went down on. And I remember sitting in calculus class one day, at a lecture. And I was just thinking to myself that I was going to regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't try to achieve my passion, which was acting. And it was in that moment that I decided I was, going to pursue it. And so I went to theater school, and I graduated with 18 classmates. It was a very small program. They only accepted 30 people, and by the time we graduated 4 years later, it was only 18 of us. So it was an intense program, but I'm very lucky. We did a lot of incredible things in that program. Shakespeare, Commedia dell'arte, the moderns, the classics, all of it. So, I'm very lucky. And a tiny bit of singing.
Now, I want to get back to Aladdin because you were sort of the Arab representation of it. I mean, you're the titular role. And I'm not sure how it was behind the scenes if you were sort of the only representative there. So did you feel a big responsibility to make sure that everything that was going to be Arab represented was going to be correct?
Well, I felt a big responsibility because Aladdin, growing up, and we have one of the greats with us in the audience, Hussein Fahmy. I grew up watching him. He's one of the greats of Egypt. So I grew up watching incredible artists like him, and when I started watching things in Hollywood, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. And Aladdin was one of the only things where I saw myself in it. And so I think I felt the pressure there to do it justice because it was one of the only things that really represented my culture and my people. And, and some of us felt the same way too. I mean, we had Marwan in our show. He's Tunisian. We had Nassim. She's Persian. So we had some good representation, but I think some of us, felt the need to tell the story and represent our cultures in the right way.
Yeah. I also think that to represent yourself and Arabs in Western media can sometimes be difficult because we're very diverse. Like, I'm Emirati, you're Egyptian, but
Yeah.
we speak completely different Arabics. So you feel a huge responsibility, but how are you able to be inclusive of all the Arabs when you're
Well,
working
you know,
with them?
it's interesting. I think as an Egyptian, I'm very proud to be Egyptian because Egypt, as you know, has supplied, you know, the vast majority of arts and entertainment to the Middle East. In the 1970s, Egypt was the third largest film market in the world. It was Hollywood, Bollywood, and then the Egyptian film market. It's changed now a little bit because it's become so international. But as an Egyptian, you know, I think people inspired me to come back and try to represent my culture, and I've tried to do that as well, and I'll continue to try to do that because I think it's important. I think when you gain success internationally, it's your duty to, you know, come back and try to bring light to your culture and where you come from. And so there's many different ways to do that. Part of the way that I'm trying to do that is, you know, by working in Egypt and the Middle East. I've been working really hard on my Arabic, making it better so that I can authentically work here and be able to represent my culture even better in Hollywood and in the States. So it's a multifaceted approach, you know, it's complicated.
Yeah. Do you feel embraced by Egyptian cinema? Because I know that they're a very tough crowd.
I think so, yeah. I feel a lot of love from Egyptians in Egypt, and I've been back quite a few times since 2020. I go back, you know, almost twice a year. The film that I did there in broad daylight, Fez el-Dohr, you know, I started shooting that in 2021, and so I've been back quite a few times, and, you know, hopefully it comes out soon. I think I'm very proud of that film, and I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish, and I hope that, you know, people from outside of Egypt watch that film and come to realize how amazing Egyptian cinema is and the arts in the Middle East, because we have such a rich history here and such incredible artists.
Yeah. Going back to that, actually, there's a lot of Egyptian actors in Western media. And I wanted to ask you, how do you personally make sure that you're not doing stereotypical representations as an Arab, as an Egyptian as well?
You know, it's hard because, like any industry, Hollywood is very competitive. It's highly competitive, and sometimes, you know, it's hard to say no to opportunities. But sometimes you have to. Like, my first ever role that paid me money in America was Al Qaeda #2.
Yeah.
But I was just graduating theater school, you know, I didn't know any better. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. You know, I wasn't at a stage where I could say no to things. But, you know, more recently, they were doing, they were doing a show about a character that wasn't very positive in the Middle East. And that was something I told my agents, I'm not auditioning for it, I don't want to see it. And quite honestly, I can't believe they're still telling stories like this. So I think you know, you get to a stage where you can start standing up for yourself. But when you're 17, 18, graduating theater school, you know, I get it, you know. So it's a tough thing to do, but I think it's up to every individual person to set their boundaries. It's not unlike life, right? You go through things in life, and you have to make hard decisions and decisions on when to say no to things. So it's very similar to that.
Yeah, that seems to be the case when you enter an Arab's actors IMDb and you just scroll down and it's just like terrorist #1, terrorist #2. That seems to be, unfortunately, how a lot of people crack the industry. But you also said that you've started saying no to projects. But is that the reason you decided to step into the role of producer also?
Well, yes. I think the reason I've started to produce is because there just aren't enough opportunities in Hollywood for people that look like me and you. And I think the only way we make real change is, you know, if we start, the people who have knowledge in the industry start producing. So I'm not the only one that does it, But I think that's important. I also think sometimes people have good intentions, but they don't know how to go about it. So, you know, if there's executives in Hollywood, you know, there's some of them that want to tell these kinds of stories, but they just don't know how. They don't know what to tell. They just don't know. And I think it's up to us to take that responsibility and show that to the world. So, you know, again, I think if you find success, it's your responsibility to try to advance the industry in the right way. And I'm blessed to have found success in America, and you know, I really am making it a part of my job to be able to bring positive stories, positive Arab, Middle Eastern, Egyptian stories to the States. And it's not an easy thing, but you know, you've got to try.
It seems to be the ethos behind your production company, which is called Press Play Productions, to be diverse stories, stories that have not been heard. But you've also started a podcast that you co-host called Growth Untold. It seems to be that is your main importance, is to make sure that there's a lot of stories highlighted that tend to not be heard. I mean, not only do we not hear them in Western media, but although they're MENA stories, we don't always hear them in this part of the region as well. So what was the purpose behind sort of tackling this from different media?
Well, I think, you know, I've just, you know, grew up not really seeing myself represented, and I think that really stuck with me, and I want people to have the opportunity to be represented. So it is kind of the mantra behind my podcast, which my production company also produces, so it kind of all fits in together in that way. But I think it's important, you know, to take that approach if you want to. Mm-hmm. You know, some people find success and they want to keep going down that track, and they have different ways of doing it, which is fantastic. But it's something that I really wanted to do.
Now, this is a question from me as well, because I work in development.
Okay.
How do you choose what stories to produce? Is it strategic? Are you thinking, unfortunately, you also have to think financially, and what would be intriguing for an audience, as well as your own personal input?
It depends if we're developing something or we're looking to just produce something. And what I mean by that is when we're looking to just produce something, which we're kind of doing this year, we're looking at scripts. And so really that's the deciding factor, is we take a look at the script, and that's the main factor. Is the script good? Does it speak to us? Is it something we want to do? When we're developing, you know, that's a whole other approach, because that can take years. You know, my project Evolving Vegan, for example, you know, that went from idea to TV show in about 4 or 5 years. So it can take years sometimes. So we have different approaches for both. But I think the thing that ties them both together is, you know, are they stories that we want to tell? And sometimes it has to do with our mantra, which is giving a voice to the unheard, the underrepresented. And sometimes it's just a passion project, like Evolving Vegan was for me. So it really depends. But I think, you know, like I had this show that I've been wanting to do forever. And I think, you know, the Middle East is the perfect producing partners for it. But I wanted to take the era of Abd al-Halim and do a mini-series where every episode focuses on a different character from his era. So you would do like an episode on Abd al-Halim, and at the end of the episode, you would see like Ismail Yassin, and then you would go on his journey, and then you would see someone at the end of that episode and go on their journey. So I think we have such a rich, you know, tapestry to tap into. And we have the means to do it now, because I think technology has leveled the playing field between Hollywood and other upcoming emerging industries as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've produced and star in your first Arabic language feature film. Before we show you guys the trailer for it, can you just give us some information?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's called Faiz al Dohr. It's starring some of the best actors in Egypt: Shireen Rida, Bayoumi Fouad, Jamila Awad, Amin Al Asi. Some great actors in it. And yeah, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to have gotten to work with these actors. Like I said, when I grew up, I really fell in love with acting through Egyptian cinema and TV because that's what my parents watched. They weren't watching American TV, so I had no idea. That came later, but I fell in love with Egyptian cinema, and it was always my dream to come back and act with these incredible artists because I really do think we have some of the best artists in the world and some of the richest cinematic history in the world is in Egypt. So, yeah, so I don't know if we're going to show the trailer, but that's pretty much it.
Can we line up the trailer?
But I need you in another mission. More important mission than before.
حمزة بيعمل ايه في مصر؟
السواقة دي مش هتاكل معايا.
بلاش تراهني على ده يا ساندرا.
عارفة بتدور على ايه؟
لو ما رحتش هيعرفوا انك انت عارف ان اتربى.
هو الواد ده عمل لكم ايه؟
بس نحن مش بأمان يا حمزة.
And the news reporting about his bank robberies.
دخل هيدا الكود.
دي ورقة واحدة ممكن تقلب العالم.
البوليس هنا مش سهل.
Let me do my job. أنا اسمي حمزة الكاشف.
Looks amazing. This seems to be an amalgamation of genres. There's some action. There's you just dressed in different outfits over there. Would you say this is like your dream project that has come to life?
Yeah, it's an action drama, and what I loved about working in Egypt is they let you do a little bit more than Hollywood. So in Aladdin, I didn't get to do a lot of my own stunts just because of insurance purposes. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the reason Tom Cruise can do his own stunts is he waives the entire production insurance and gets his own. So he pays for the entire production insurance so that he could do his own stunts. I can't do that. So I didn't get to do a lot of my own stunts in Aladdin, but in Egypt you can. So I got to do a little bit more. And that was an amazing part of working there. And, it's very different, but I think it's liberating as well. And I understand why artists are so artistic in the Middle East because it is a little bit more free. I think as artists, you get bound up by the technicalities a little bit more. And of course, in Hollywood, there's so much structure to everything. And so that can bind an actor a little bit, whereas I felt a little bit more freedom in Egypt, maybe a little bit too much freedom people get, but it works to your advantage as an artist.
Yeah. And how was it acting in Arabic?
It's interesting. It felt almost more natural to me to act in Arabic because I think I grew up with it. But of course, technically, it was harder for me because I've always spoken Arabic, but I'm very aware of my accent, and I've worked really hard to improve the American accent in Arabic. So that part was tough, but it just meant more rehearsals, which is fine. It's something that I'm used to. So, so I hope people don't get bogged down by it when they watch a film, but I think... I think it's decent and it'll continue to get better.
Yeah. Would you say this is like the gateway that you're going to be starring in more Arabic-speaking roles, or?
I hope so. I'd love to. I would love to. I think that it's cracking into any industry is tough, and a lot of people are waiting for this film to come out. But Egyptian timing, you don't really know when it's gonna come out. Like when I was growing up, we would show up late everywhere for half an hour, and people would be like, "It's Egyptian timing." So I think that's a thing in Egypt as well. إيه؟ أيوة بالظبط. You never know, but yeah, it would be a great privilege and honor for me to be able to come back and work in Egypt, in the Middle East every year. like I said, I think we have such talented artists, and I'd like to get to work with all of them, honestly.
Yeah, and I would be remiss to mention that you've done a lot of rom-coms, and Egyptian rom-com is, I mean, we all love it here in the region, so I'm pretty sure that everybody would be excited to see you in something like that.
Yeah, I'd love that. This film is very much an action drama, so I would love to try out a rom-com for sure.
Do you see yourself maybe directing at one point?
You know, I've thought about it. I think I have the personality for it, but I'm definitely not ready for it. I think I would have to learn a lot to do it. You know, I don't know a ton about cameras and the technicalities that go behind the camera, the screen. You know, so I don't know. Maybe, you know, if it's in God's plan, maybe I'll do it one day. But I think for now, producing and acting is a lot on my plate. So I don't think I'm gonna add any more to that.
You do have author on your resume, though.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Are we gonna fire up the final draft?
I fired up Final Draft a bit, but I think I would be more likely to direct than write. Writing is even something that you know, that's even harder for me. So I think I'm gonna stick to acting for now.
Okay, speaking about you as an author, you've written a cookbook called Evolving Vegan.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about what led you to the path to put pen to paper there?
Yeah, so like we were speaking about on the development side, Evolving Vegan, I always knew I wanted to do the show Evolving Vegan, which, by the way, you can watch at least the first season on Star here in the Middle East. And I knew in order to be able to sell the show that I needed a pre-existing IP to be able to make the show happen. So the book was really a means to an end of producing the show. And so I wrote the book, I published it in 2021, and then we sold the show idea, the show concept after that. And so that was really my, my journey into the book. I think it's interesting that I can say I'm an author because I just wrote a cookbook. Like, you know, when I think of author, I think of someone who wrote a fiction or nonfiction novel, but it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, so.
Was it harder to tell your parents you're dropping out of medicine school or telling them you're vegan?
You know, it's, I don't know. No, probably that I'm dropping out of medical school. But my mom did cry about the fact that I was vegan. She made dinner once, and I think she made like كوارع and feta. You right? أنا عارف الكلام ده. She made like كوارع وفتا, and she made the feta with like zibda and whatever. So she was pouring me the rice, and I was like, I can't eat any of this. And she was like, but I made all this food. I was like, I can't eat any of this. She thought I was gonna crack, you know, when she cooked this meal. She thought I was gonna be like, okay, I'll eat it. And so when I was like, no, I'm not gonna eat it, I guess I'll just have the rice, she started crying because there she was, and all her son was eating was rice. And so she felt so bad. But so yeah, she did cry about the fact that I was
But she
plant-based.
did contribute to the book. She did contribute to the book.
She did contribute to the book. She's an incredible cook, an amazing cook, and she did contribute to the book. So a lot of her vegan recipes are in there. So, you know, I think she's got kushari in there, bamia, basbousa, mahshi. She's got a lot of good recipes in there. انتم متابعين على فكرة متابعين.
Food is a huge part of our culture, of course, and I'm sure you've grown up with that.
Yeah.
Was that sort of like the driving force, maybe, for you?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, my mom's an amazing cook, and you know, we also, when we immigrated to Canada, we didn't have a lot of money, like a lot of immigrants. You know, my dad was a satellite engineer. He worked in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. But, you know, and he saved a little bit of money. But when we moved to Canada, you know, he never worked as a satellite engineer again, you know, because he had to pick up odd jobs to provide for his family. So my mom cooked every meal. Like, we almost never ate out. When we ate out, it was a treat. You know, like, we ordered pizza once every 2 weeks or once every month, and that was a treat to us. So she cooked a lot, and I fell in love with cooking and just watching her cook, and her food was amazing. So, you know, I fell in love with food that way as well. So, yeah, I think it's a big part of our culture, and that definitely contributed to me wanting to do the show and the book.
Cooking is also storytelling in a sense. And then whether via the book or your show, did you feel that you coming as an actor and as a producer, that food was intertwining everything together?
Yeah, you know, I think more important than that, food is an incredible way to remain close to your culture. Like, we were talking backstage, and you were telling me that a lot of this young generation doesn't know a lot of Arabic, and you know, English has kind of taken over the whole world. That a lot of the younger generation is starting to lose touch with their culture. But food is an incredible way for people to stay rooted to where they come from, even if they don't know the language. Yeah. Like, I know a ton of people who don't know the language, their mother tongue, but they can tell you all the dishes, they can cook the dishes. Yeah. And so food is such a pivotal way to stick to your roots. And I think it was that way for me too, growing up.
Are we going to get another season where you possibly explore the Middle East? It might be extremely challenging.
I hope so. I hope so. We've done 2 seasons now, 12 episodes. We usually have an international episode every season, so we did Mexico City and then we did Japan. So I hope we get to do it again, and you know, the Middle East will definitely be on that list.
Yeah, I think it would be incredible to do one season in Arabic, in Egypt, asking for vegan food.
That would be amazing. Sign me up for that. That would be incredible. I would love to do that.
And now to speak about your future. What you've mentioned, finding diverse stories and giving a microphone to the unheard stories. What else drives you professionally?
You know, that's a question I've been trying to answer for myself lately. You know, I think my definition of success has changed so much, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. When I first started acting, my definition of success was just making a decent living acting, you know, and that's all I wanted. If I could, you know, make a medium living acting, I was gonna be okay. And I genuinely graduated thinking I was gonna do like il masrah. I was gonna just be a theater actor. And things kind of changed and didn't work out that way. So I don't know. I think my definition of success now professionally would be to make a real difference in the world. I see a lot of people messaging me on Instagram, and you know, they're like, I want to be an actor, and you've inspired me to do that. I would love to see one of those people like make it. You know, I think that would be my definition of success. Yeah. You know, like seeing someone really succeed and have them say that I inspired them to do that. I think that would be, you know, that would be kind of a career-defining moment for me.
You just mentioned theater. Is that something you one day would like to tackle?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually been looking into it. You know, it's so interesting. Our industry's so complicated and so different, but, you know, like Broadway is the big theater industry in America, and it's so different, you know, and it's like if you want to get into Broadway, you either have to be a really famous Hollywood actor that can kind of just do it, or you have to have put in years of dedication into that specific industry. It's very tough. So I'd love to get back on stage. That's something else that I'm really, really want to do, because it's really where my roots are. So I'd love to do that.
Yeah, you've have your hands in so many different jars. Is that because you have to, or is it like your driving force personally as well?
To be honest, I think it's because you have to now. I always kind of thought that if I could, I would just act. You know, I would just go from job to job to job acting. But the industry's changed so much now. You really can't do that. You know, like we spoke about, it depends where you are. You know, I think actors in the Middle East can do that a little bit more. You know, and depending on, you know, who you are. In Hollywood, you can do that a little bit more. So it really depends. But I think for me, it's kind of a necessity thing. If you want to tell the right stories, if you want to act in the right things, you've got to make it happen yourself. You know, like Evolving Vegan would have never happened if I didn't produce it, if I didn't write it. It would have never happened for me. I don't think someone would have come up to me and been like, "Do you want to host a food show for us?" So I think you have to go out and make stuff happen at a certain point.
Switch notes. From your previous roles, is there a role that you wish to revisit, whether it's via sequel or any other form?
I wouldn't say a specific role, but a genre. My film "Wish You Were Here," which just came out with Julia Stiles directing, that was a straight drama. It was a really tough role. I played a character who had brain cancer and he was terminally ill. I shaved my head for it, and I had to really get into a dark space for it because, you're playing a character who doesn't have much time left to live, and that's a dark place. And I think it was the first time in my career where after we wrapped for about 3 weeks, I wasn't myself. I couldn't shake this feeling of sadness. And it was because it was just a really tough project, and as hard as it was, I realized that I really do kind of miss dramatic roles. Because like you said, I've done a lot of rom-coms, I've done a lot of lighter things, but heavy dramas are not something I've done a lot, and that is a genre I would want to go back and explore.
How about, and without giving away any secrets, a dream role, whether it's in the pipeline or you want to say it out loud now to manifest it?
Oh man, I don't have anything in specific.
Or a genre that you want to...
Yeah, a biopic, I guess. I've been working on something, so we'll see. But a biopic, I think that would be interesting. That would be a challenge. Getting to play someone who actually lived, because sometimes if you're lucky enough, you have archive footage of them, so you get to kind of really become them, and you have a blueprint. Whereas other times you're kind of just creating a character out of thin air. So a biopic would be interesting to do.
You don't want to tell us who?
Huh?
You don't want to tell us who?
There's
you don't have to. You really
there's
don't
so
have
many. There's so many. I genuinely don't have like one off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have one for me? Is that why you keep pushing?
I can think of something. I'm not sure if we have any filmmakers or creative artists in the audience, but is there a message you could tell them coming from, you sort of came from Hollywood and then coming here, and usually the case is that people want to leave and make it in a big screen. I personally think it's really important to work in the Middle East in the industry because, as you said, we have so many stories that are so interesting. However, it's not very encouraged here. So if you have any message you could tell them.
I'm not going to tell people to leave or not leave. I think the grass is kind of always greener on the other side. I'm always kind of, I look at Egyptian cinema and I love it because I'm like, everybody's Egyptian. So you get to work with everybody and you're like, everybody's Egyptian. So I get it. There's a whole different dynamic with that, but it's also such a rich environment because you're all, you're all Middle Eastern, you're all from the same culture, you understand each other. So there's that's amazing about it. But I understand, that, Hollywood and America and overseas has its pros and cons too. So I think my message would be, being an artist it's incredible and it's liberating, but it's also very difficult.
Yeah.
And I think it makes you look inwards a lot and really look in the mirror at the darkest places of yourself. Like, I think for a lot of people, you really get to learn a lot about yourself as an artist, and that's a tough thing to do sometimes. So it's hard, and you gotta really know that you want to do it. So if you're in the arts, you gotta make sure that you absolutely love it and that's what you want to commit your life to, because I think, unlike a lot of other jobs, the arts is something that you really have to commit your life to.
Yeah. Is there a daily routine or something that you ascribe to?
Well, I manifest a lot. You know, I think that's important. I kind of envision where I want to be and where I want to go with my career. I think that's important. I think you have to have a clear idea of who you want to be and where you want to go. So that's something that, you know, that I try to do. And I think it's always important to have a plan. I'm going to go into that a little bit more, I think, on Monday. I'm doing a session at the university, and I'll kind of break it down more technically there. But yeah, I think it's important to kind of have a clear vision for yourself.
Mina, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
رمضان season مسلسلات. What was the best مسلسل for you? Holding the best message.
Oh my gosh. I have to catch up on the Ramadan musalsalat, to be honest. But if you could recommend one, what would you recommend? What did you like? Tamanin Beku? ولاد الشمس. Okay. All right. الاثنين دول كم حلقة بقى؟ هقعد كم ساعة اتفرج عليهم؟ ايه ده بجد؟ قللنا كتير في مصر. طيب كويس. طيب خلاص ودعك يعني I'll watch one for sure.
Mina, I'm very happy to get to know you. It's my first time to see you.
Thank you. الشرف بتاعي صدقني.
I really admire your patriotism. I've been grown up as well as you, admiring Egyptian cinema, and this is what made me work in this business all these years. So I'm very happy to get to know you. I'm very happy with the conversation that you went through.
Thank you.
I'm a graduate of UCLA myself. I've got my Master of Fine Arts from there, so I have the similarity of you. I worked in Hollywood for a few years as a film director, so I know exactly what you're talking about. What I want to go now is the character of Aladdin. How did you look at the character and how did you develop it? Of course, it's a very well-known long stories of 1001 Nights. So you picked up the Aladdin and they chose you for the part. So how did you work on it?
Yeah, it was multifaceted for me. As of course you know, as an actor, there's the technical part of it with the dancing and the singing and the musical part of it, the stunts. And then there was the character development. And for me, it was really important for the character to be able to really play with this idea of searching for one's identity. I think that's a big thing about Aladdin. That's kind of the crux of his journey is he doesn't know who he is as a person and who he wants to become. And so that identity struggle, and that's the whole idea of the genie, right? Is he has these three wishes, and in the end, he realizes that he didn't need any of them. And I think that's a big, important kind of thing that I wanted to portray, is that there's this kid who's from the street, who doesn't have much, and he meets a princess, and he doesn't think he's good enough. And that's the big thing we all go through. We all think we're not good enough in certain aspects. But it's one's belief that's really the biggest obstacle in your journey. And so that was really something that, you know, we kind of all spoke about, and Will spoke about it too. Will Smith, we were talking backstage. Will Smith, he's a falsafi. He's a philosopher, really. So we really talked about those messages. So for me, it was about the internal struggle, and that's kind of how I approach the acting side of it.
Thank you. I'm a filmmaker, and I recently moved from Canada, and I have a question for you about two different shows. First is Transplant. It was about a Syrian doctor who refugee, and it was done by CBC. Yes. They worked on the character, and then the first season was a hit, so they had to go back to the Syrian community and ask for their help to develop this character better, because the actor was Canadian from a Pakistani background.
Yes,
so
Hamza, right?
Hamza, yes. So his accent was like totally off, and we kind of like they reached out to the Syrian who are in the writers or in character development. And then the other show was Mo, And that was the total opposite. You had all the Arab actors and writers helping each other, coming up within a show that was ahead too. We like this kind of two different examples help. What would you think? Would you say, sorry, that the Arabic characters in the West production has changed the way they deal with Arabic characters? Because you're always like someone who's darker skinned but not from Arabic background. But now we see a bit of a shift. Would that be the case, or is it like more is a one-of-a-kind case?
I think it really depends on the production company and the studio behind the project, right? Like I know Mo had Rami Youssef's support big time, and I think it was Rami Youssef's production company, if I'm not mistaken. So he was really able to, I think, guide him and help him through it. And I think what you're saying is that turned out, more authentic. I think that's what you're saying. So I think that makes sense because he had, someone behind the show that was authentic, that had done it already. Whereas with Transplant, I didn't even know it was about a Syrian refugee because I've never seen it, but I saw the trailers and I know Hamza's in it. And so I didn't know that it was specifically about a Syrian refugee. So I think it's really up to the studios and the production companies behind the projects to try to portray authenticity. I mean, that's what art is all about. So, I hope it continues to get better. But I will say this: at least those shows are even being made now. Where when I was, coming out of theater school in 2014, there wasn't anything like that being made even. So I think, it's progress takes time.
Thank you all for attending. That's a wrap. Please, everyone give it up for Mina.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, I appreciate you guys.